Guys, I'm going to show you a quick video on installing an option on a Chevrolet Cruze. This is a mud guard kit, a 954-89815. You know, you can get these pretty cheap on eBay if you look around. Very cheap in the case of one like this that doesn't have the instructions in it, and that's part of why I'm going to show you the video. But even if you had the instructions, because I've done a couple of these in earlier days, they can be hard to follow. So let me first kind of go what you should see in a kit like this. The ones that have the kind of L shape to the molding are going to be the fronts. And this is for a 2011, 2012, 2013 type Cruze. And they'll say GM on them, and they'll have like a J300, which is the series that the Cruze is. So those are the fronts. And then the rears look a little different. Right, so the rears have a hole in the bottom and then two holes on the side. So that's kind of like what they look like. And then you should have, sometimes it'll be in one bag, usually it's in two, is the hardware. And the hardware for the fronts is going to consist of one of these U-nuts and a hex head bolt, 7mm hex head bolt, and then a couple of these push pins like we typically see on modern GM vehicles. And the rears, again, might be one bag with all this stuff, but the rears should have two plastic U-nuts as well as two plated U-nuts, two T20 hex head screws, as well as two 7mm, two T20 Torx head screws, as well as two 7mm hex head screws. So that's what you should have hardware-wise. Very simple to install. So let's just, I'm going to show you a front and a rear on one side, not both sides, and that's pretty much the same. Okay, coming here on the front, we're on the passenger side. Just happens to be a little bit better light today. I'm just taking a rag here. Just want to get some of the road debris and dirt off that's going to now be covered up by these new mud guards. And yeah, you probably should put them on when the vehicle is brand new, but the person that has this car just got it recently. So we're going to use our pin remover, go into the notch on the top. This is just like any of these other pins on the Cruze. These external ones are no different. We're going to pull the inside piece out, right? And then we're going to pull the body out, the whole thing. Again, you see these on a lot of different places on the vehicle. And then there's another one on the bottom. You can see on this mirror, hopefully. You can see it right there. This guy right here. I'm not going to be able to show you getting it out all the way, but you can see that it's right here. I'm going to need both my hands. Just get under here and pop that one out. Same deal though, you find the little notch, you work your tool under the notch, get the push pin itself out, and then take the housing of the clip out, and we're done moving the old parts. Okay, so now what we'll do is grab the kit for the front, and we'll take out what we need. I'll tell you right now, we're not going to end up using everything in here, but we got this guy, and then we've got two of these, right? That leaves us the same thing in the kit for the other side. And then we're going to grab the one that fits the side, right? We're going to pull the liner away, and we're going to install the U-bolt on top of the metal part of the fender here. Again, just going to see if I can get a little bit of this accumulated road debris up before I do that. Okay. And this guy's going to go in with the dimple of the threads facing the rear of the vehicle. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, pull this out enough to do that. I can't see from my hands, but once I get it done, I'll show you. Okay, so there you go. So got this in position. All right, So what's going to happen now is that's going to let us attach the screw straight through that's going to hold this guy at the top, like so. We can go ahead and start this. Like I said, it was a 7mm headed. Now you, depending on the tools you have, you might have to take the front wheel off. But if you can get a small tool, like this one, I'm going to use a small ratchet wrench, and I've just got a 7mm socket on it. And it just happens to be that if you start it by hand first, you have enough room to get in here and finish the job without having to pull the wheel off. So I'm going to get this guy reasonably snugged up. I'm not going to tighten him up all the way until I do the bottom. Okay, and then we get a replacement one of these pins. So we're going to take a look on the bottom. Our mirror. We can see we've got a hole here. Hopefully you guys can see this. And I'm going to put this pin in here. And if you can't see it here, you get the idea, hopefully. But we're going to just push this pin in. And what I'll do is I'll get the pin started and then maybe come underneath with the camera and see if I can get a better view of it. Basically just push it back until you can get the hole to line up, and then push it in. And then if you go look underneath there, you can see that it's in position. And then you just push the middle part of the pin in to lock it, and that will expand it. Just got to get the seat all the way. And then you're done. Come over here, tighten this up. Now that we got that in, and there's no torque given on these that I've ever seen, so just kind of snug them up. You don't want to go crazy and strip anything out, but this is something that's likely to get bumped and banged as you're doing parking, maybe hitting a speed bump or something like that, so you definitely just want to get it nice and snug. At that point, it's on, it's nice and secure, but you notice we're missing, or we have a part left over. And the deal with that is, on the bottom of these, I'll show you the other side. So this is the side for the drivers. So we put the hex head nut in here, and we put one of these push pins in here, and those are the factory holes. There's an additional hole they want you to drill, and the instructions are written for outside the U.S., so they mention drilling it with an 8.5mm drill bit. But the equivalent would be a 21/64 drill bit. Works out to about 8.4mm, which is close enough. To do this, you definitely have to get it up off the ground. Even with a 90-degree drill like I have here, it wouldn't be possible without getting it up off the ground on jack stands or on a ramp or something like that. But I'm not going to drill this personally. I mean, this is what they would want you to do here, is they would want you to drill. There's a, let's see if I can get this on the thing here. So here's our one that's already installed. This might be easier if I use this yellow pointer. So there's the one that's already installed. And what they want us to do is they want us to come all the way over here to this one, and they want us to drill through a piece of plastic. You're not drilling through metal, you're drilling through a piece of plastic that's a part of the inside wheel liner that would just give it a little bit of extra support. When they used to put these on the factory, like on a J car, like a Cavalier or a Sunfire, had a very similar design, and they never drilled that side out on the Cavaliers either. So I think I'm going to leave it like that in my case as well. So that's the front. So let's pause for a second, and we'll go and do the one in the back. Let's do another view from underneath here, just so you can see the mud guard in position and the pieces that we were talking about earlier. And one of the things I wanted to point out too is while you have this thing off, it's a great time to come up in here with like some canned air and blow all the debris that might have gotten stuck in front of this gutter here, so that you don't end up with some corrosion while you get everything apart. So I just thought I'd give you this bottom-up view so you can see and then point that tip out. Let's go continue on to the rear. To the rear. Again, I'm just going to wipe off the painted surface it's going to be covered up when we install the guard. This particular vehicle was washed and waxed not too long ago, so it's just surface grime. Part of that is just because we won't be able to get at it again. Another reason is with the guards on there, it might rub and scratch or something like that. All right, so we got our, again, we're on the passenger side. So this is our passenger side guard. He's going to fit on like this. And we got a couple of holes here and one here. Now, again, similar to front, this one is one they would ask you to drill. And I'm not going to do that because in that case, you know, it would be going through the plastic of the rear bumper on the bottom. And I personally am not going to do that, but you can do that. And again, it's with that 21/64 bit. And taking a look at our hardware pack, it's a little bit different on this side. So we're going to end up with using one of these blue plastic U-bolts, excuse me, U-nuts that has a spacer to it. We're going to need one of these 7mm hex head screws out of the pack. We're going to need one of these T20 Torx head screws out of the pack. We're going to need one of these metal U-nuts out of the pack. And if we were doing the drilling on the bottom, we would need one push clip. So the push clip is what would actually be used on the bottom piece here. The removal, get a little flashlight in here, what we're going to be removing, there's a, you can see an existing T20 screw here that we're going to be taking out. There's another one up here, but we're not going to be touching that one. So we're going to be taking this guy out. My flashlight will keep going on. And the way I get that out is I'm going to take a T20 bit. I'm going to put it in a 1/4 socket on my ratchet. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do this without having to remove the tire. Obviously, if you remove the tire, you got a lot more flexibility on the type of tools that you can work with here. But I'm not going to do that. So I'll take this guy out. Thought he was ready to come out by hand. Yeah, he is. Okay. Okay, so we got him out. And then what we're going to do, similar to the front, we're going to come under here. We're going to pull this out of the way. And we got an existing U-nut that's on here that we're going to take off. And we're going to replace it with a new one. Now, basically, it's the same thing, right? But since this is a plastic U-nut, we're going to put a new one on to make sure that the things are nice and fresh. Right, and again, you know, the flat side here points towards the gasoline tank, right? And the rounded part with the hole is towards the outside of the bumper. All right, so we got a new one of those guys in there. Now, on this particular one, it's going to be inevitable to drill something because there's only one existing hole. And while I don't really want to drill into the rear bumper, I'm going to have to drill into the rear liner for this bottom attaching position here. All right, so when we put this guy in here, we'll be able to attach the one we just took out. We're going to have to drill right in here. Let me get my flashlight again, because I know even though it's the middle of the day here, we're inside the wheel well and things are kind of dark. Down here, we're going to have no choice but to put a hole in to this plastic wheel liner, or we won't have enough support with just this guy up on top. And, you know, in order to do that, you will have to take off the tire if you're going to use a drill and everything like that. What I'm going to try and do, though, instead, just to show you, is to come in here with a different tool and make this hole without doing that. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to take my Torx head, because the Torx head is the one that's going to go up on the top here, basically replacing the one we took off. I'm just going to get it started enough to, by my finger, just to hold this. And And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to mark where this hole needs to be. I'm going to pause the video for a second because it doesn't like we got good enough light here. I'm going to try to reposition the flashlight in here so you can see. And we'll make a hole for this, and then we'll come back around, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this U-nut on the plastic liner. And then we're going to run this hex head nut through the guard and use the U-nut to bring the guard and the plastic liner tightly together, and that's going to help secure the bottom part. So let me pause for a second and show you. So got a little flashlight in here. I hope it's a little better. What I'm doing is I'm pressing in the mud guard to where it's going to need to be when everything's buttoned up, and then I'm going to take a small nail and I'm going to place it in the hole here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to score the wheel liner where we need to drill the hole. All right, hopefully we've made a good enough mark. I'll take my T20 bit and I'm going to undo this screw that I screwed in part way to hold everything into position temporarily. Again, I didn't tighten it in, but I had to start it so that we got to get the position of the hole where it's going to be after everything's buttoned up, or we're wasting our time. Okay. Our screw, let me go fetch him. All right. Now what I'm going to try and do here, see if I can see the score mark we made. Yep, right there. I'm going to take now just a regular old hole punch. I'm going to come up in here, and I don't expect this to go all the way through, but it's going to make a nice wider mark for me. Actually, you know what? It did go through. All right. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's my hole. I'm going to put my U-nut on here. And then I'm going to come back with my guard. I'll take my hex head screw in the bottom. That's the thing to remember, is hex head on the bottom and Torx on the top. When I get him started, my hand, and then I'm going to take my T20. He goes into the blue plastic U-nut that we put on the liner, excuse me, the hole that was already existing on the bumper liner. Then I take my T20 by hand. Start it in by hand here. And then I have enough room to get the whole works in here, I think. Snug this guy up. And again, there's no torque values on this stuff, but you don't want to go crazy and strip things out, so I can just get it till it starts to feel nice and snug. Then I'm going to switch back to my 7mm socket and finish getting this slower guy in. It helps sometimes to put your thumb behind the wheel liner that you put that U-nut into until you get this guy started enough. That sound you hear is just the handle of the ratchet wrench rubbing along the bottom of the mud guard. Probably should have put a very small 1-inch extension in here, but I'm trying to show you how to do this without removing the tire, so I have to have some compromises. And again, no torque on this guy, just going to snug him up, and we're done. Now, you know, this whole bumper is plastic, right? So it's going to move around. You're not going to have it as tight of a connection as you have on the front. But that's how you do it. Now again, if you want to, you can drill that 21/64 hole on the bottom and come around the back side here with the camera. I'll show you. You know, you could come under here for this hole and drill this guy out and put one of these clips in there into the actual bumper, but I'm not going to do that. And then this other part of the guard, you know, just hangs past the bumper liner itself. Anyway, I hope this helps you out. We're all done. And that's how you install guards on your Cruze. Thanks for watching.